Into the unknown, a fearless group of explorers plunged into the dark, mysterious heart of the Earth. But their thrill-seeking adventure took a deadly turn when a catastrophic fall sent their world crashing down. This electrifying tale of a caving expedition gone horribly wrong is a heart-stopping testament to the unforgiving power of nature. Case number 1. January 18, 1980, was a day that etched itself into the annals of caving history as a chilling reminder of nature's unforgiving power. The cold winter air clung to the mountainside as a group of seasoned cavers prepared to venture into the depths of a cave system, unaware of the horrors that awaited them. The group ventured deeper into the cave, surrounded by the sounds of dripping water and unknown creatures, with their headlamps casting eerie shadows on the walls. A sudden thaw created a treacherous ice and rock barrier at the cave entrance, blocking the group's path and sealing their fate. Trapped and disoriented, the group panicked as they frantically searched for an exit, but every route led to a dead end, with the biting cold and darkness intensifying their desperation. As the hours ticked by, hypothermia started to take its toll. The group's movements became sluggish, their thoughts clouded by the creeping cold. One by one, they began to succumb to the cave's merciless grip. The group's survival hopes dwindled as the cave claimed its first victim, and the others faced a desperate fight against darkness, with their situation growing increasingly dire. Laura Sherbak and her husband joined friends to explore New River Cave in Virginia, a popular spot for casual cavers with its winding passages and limestone formations. They entered the cave, their headlamps illuminating the dark space filled with cool, damp air and the scent of earth and limestone, accompanied by the echoing sound of dripping water. The group's excitement turned to unease as they encountered an unsettling presence in the cave, realizing they were not alone. They explored New River Cave, admiring its stunning limestone formations shaped by water, but also noting the sharp edges and points created by the water's erosion. Laura and her friends navigated the cave cautiously, aware of the risks of slippery rocks and jagged edges, as the flickering shadows and echoing sound of dripping water created an eerie atmosphere. As they climbed above a particularly treacherous formation, the group's pace slowed and their caution grew. The rocks were slippery and the drop was steep. One misstep would have sent someone falling, injuring themselves on the sharp rocks below. The group's excitement gave way to a sense of unease, and they pressed on. Their senses heightened as they navigated the treacherous terrain. The unease grew as the cave darkened and shadows twisted into menacing shapes, and the sound of rushing water grew louder, filling them with anticipation and concern about what lay ahead. They arrived at the cave around 7 p.m., their excitement palpable. They were equipped with camping gear, ready to explore the cave's depths and settle in for an overnight adventure. The thrill of discovery buzzed among them as they made their way deeper into the cold, damp passageways. At first, the journey was uneventful, with 2,000 feet of crawling, climbing, and weaving through tight corridors. But everything changed when they reached a narrow section known as the Blowhole. The floor here was a mix of loose sediment, and the group's caution grew as they navigated the treacherous terrain. The air vibrated with tension as they squeezed through the narrow passage, their headlamps casting eerie shadows on the walls. Suddenly, the sound of rushing water grew louder, and the group's hearts skipped a beat. They were getting close to something. As they rounded a corner, the group's leader hesitated, her eyes fixed on the ground. The sediment was unstable, and one wrong step would have triggered a disastrous collapse. The group's excitement gave way to a sense of unease, and they moved forward with extreme caution. Their senses heightened as they navigated the treacherous terrain. The group encountered something that sent a chill through them, heightening the already unsettling atmosphere of the cave. Laura Sherbak navigated the treacherous passage, the slick, uneven limestone beneath her feet posing a constant threat. Centuries of flowing water had shaped the rock into a maze of twists and turns, and patches of moisture clung to the surface, making every step a potential hazard. The passage narrowed just beyond the blowhole, forcing Laura to carefully maneuver her way upwards with both hands and legs stretched out, taking support from the cave walls. At 18 years old, she had been eager to explore the unknown depths of the cave, but the terrain proved more challenging than she had anticipated. As she climbed, the sound of dripping water echoed through the passage, and the darkness pressed in around her. She felt the weight of the cave's ancient history bearing down on her, and her initial excitement gave way to a growing sense of unease. Suddenly, Laura's hand slipped, and she felt a jolt of fear as she scrambled to regain her footing. Her heart racing, she pressed on. As Laura navigated the treacherous terrain, her inexperience showed, but she relied on instinct and balance to guide her through the winding passage. The darkness swallowed her whole, and every step felt uncertain. Then something went wrong. Her boots slipped on a damp, slanted rock, and before she could react, her body pitched forward. She fell, her legs spreading in a desperate attempt to steady herself. But it was too late. She fell awkwardly on a rocky formation, landing badly and feeling shaken, disoriented, and weak. Her clothes were damp, her body unresponsive in places. The pain wasn't overwhelming, but it was constant. An ache she couldn't ignore. Laura experienced intense, sharp pain that radiated from her core, leaving her breathless and still, with a growing sense of discomfort and dampness. Shadows danced along the cavern walls as hurried footsteps echoed toward her. Familiar voices cut through the darkness, heavy with panic and fear. Her companions had found her at last. One of them called out to her, rushing to her side. Steady hands reached for her shoulders, guiding her gently as another flicker of light illuminated the uneven terrain and revealed the jagged shape of the rocky outcrop she had fallen onto. They sprang into action, assessing her condition with care. As they pulled back the fabric to examine her injuries, the grim reality settled in. Their faces drained of color, and the silence that followed spoke volumes. Laura fought to keep her eyes open. Her breathing came in shallow, uneven gasps, every inhale a struggle. Tremors had begun in her limbs, subtle at first, then growing stronger. Her skin turned cold to the touch, and though her pulse remained fast, it grew noticeably weaker. One of her companions, recognizing the signs, understood immediately. Shock was setting in. The urgency in their movements escalated. They worked swiftly. Someone retrieved an emergency blanket from a pack, while another searched for signs of fractures or internal injuries. Though no one voiced their worst fears, Laura could see them written across each worried face. And yet, she remained conscious, aware of her pain, of the fear settling over the group, and of the strange, unsettling sound that still echoed faintly from deeper in the cave. Whatever it was, it hadn't stopped moving. As her team focused on stabilizing her, a sudden and uneasy stillness spread among them. The faint sound had returned, closer now. A dragging, shuffling rhythm filled the air like something unfamiliar scraping across the stone. Laura's gaze shifted toward the edge of the light. Her heart pounded, not just from the pain, but from the deep, growing realization that something else was down there with them. As blood loss took its toll, Laura's body fought to maintain equilibrium. The cold cave air pressed against her skin, intensifying the tremors that had already taken hold. Her system battled the early stages of hypothermia, clinging desperately to consciousness, resisting the slow pull towards unconsciousness. Her companions understood what was at stake. Time was not on their side. Two members of the group sprinted through the dark, winding cave passages, driven by desperation to reach the surface and find help, fueled by fear and urgency despite their growing exhaustion. The remaining group members tended to Laura, removing her wet clothes and wrapping her in a sleeping bag to conserve body heat, but their worried eyes revealed the tension and concern they tried to keep hidden. Laura's condition worsened, with even small movements causing discomfort, her breathing becoming shallow, and her consciousness fading in and out as she drifted between reality and a blurry mental state. The Giles County Rescue Squad was alerted to Laura's injury at 10 p.m. and sprang into action, quickly assembling a team and preparing equipment for a rescue mission into New River Cave. The two men who had escaped to get help were now unable to accurately recall the route back to Laura, their memories muddled by exhaustion, panic, and the cave's complex passages. What had once seemed a clear path now felt like an endless loop of stone and shadow. The cave had turned on them, becoming a twisting maze of uncertainty. With every moment of hesitation, time slipped further from their grasp. Laura lay still underground, her breath weak, while her companions kept vigil amidst an unsettling silence punctuated by mysterious sounds. Meanwhile, above ground, the rescue team prepared to descend into the cave to find her. The cave's darkness was oppressive, with only Laura's faint breathing indicating she still lived, while the rescue team's anxiety and uncertainty grew with every passing minute. The VPI Grotto rescue team reached Laura after a painstaking crawl through narrow tunnels, finding her barely conscious and in severe hypovolemic shock, with uncontrolled blood loss and failing vital organs. Her skin was ice cold, slick with sweat, and her lips had taken on a bluish hue. Hypothermia was setting in, draining what little strength remained in her trembling limbs. The rescuers knew they had to act fast. Every second counted. Medical personnel sprang into action, administering an IV and stabilizing her condition as much as possible. The wounded areas were carefully cleaned and bandaged, but every movement still sent shockwaves of pain through her body. Her fragile state was evident in every twitch and tremble. The rescuers carefully evacuated Laura on a specialized stretcher, navigating treacherous terrain while trying to minimize her movement. But every jolt caused her immense pain and aggravated her internal injuries. A team of 25 rescuers worked in precise coordination, forming a human conveyor belt to carefully pass Laura through a narrow passage, testing her endurance and exacerbating her pain. After an agonizingly long rescue, Laura was finally brought out of the cave and rushed to the hospital in an ambulance, her life hanging in the balance as medical teams fought to stabilize her traumatized body. A hospital medical team quickly assessed Laura's severe injuries, including extensive internal trauma and blood loss nearing organ failure, and sprang into action to stabilize her fragile condition. The accident highlighted the cave's unforgiving nature, where beauty hides deadly risks, and Laura's survival hung in the balance as she fought to overcome devastating injuries. Stay tuned for the next part, where we dove even deeper into the mystery and uncovered the shocking truth that would leave you speechless. Case number 2, March 15, 2004, was a typical day for the seasoned cavers from the Combined Services Caving Association, CSCA, as they prepared to descend into the vast cave system of Cuellar Aliat in the Quids Saline region of Mexico. Led by Jonathan Sims, Charles Milton, Simon Cornhill, Chris Mitchell, John Rowe, and Toby Hamnet, all current and former British Armed Service members, the team had spent years mapping this particular system. A team of cavers from the CSCA aimed to reach Camp 1 inside the Cuellar Aliat cave system, conduct survey work, and return, aware of the risks and having taken precautions despite damp weather conditions. As they descended into the darkness, the only sound was the soft crunch of their boots on the slick cave floor. The air was cool and still, and the total darkness was pierced only by the beams of their headlamps. The team moved with precision, navigating tight corridors and climbing over jagged rock formations. The cavers reached Camp 1, settled in, and began their survey work without any sense of urgency, unaware that the weather above was starting to worsen. By March 17, 2004, trouble emerged as a relief crew couldn't reach the team in the cave, and the caverns below faced a desperate fight for survival as their fate hung precariously in the balance. The cave's unforgiving environment was about to put the team's skills and experience to the ultimate test. The outcome was far from certain, as the team's survival hung in the balance. Would they be able to overcome the dangers that lay ahead, or would the cave prove too much for them? Heavy rain had flooded the cave entrance, blocking access, and the surface team radioed the caverns at Camp 1 to inform them they were trapped due to a submerged sump. The trapped team remained calm, relying on their supplies and communication link, and initially planned to wait for the floodwaters to recede, but the water continued to rise, escalating the situation into a potential disaster. The men at Camp 1 began to ration their food more strictly, aware that they had never expected to be trapped for an extended period. Their calculations had been based on previous flooding patterns, but nature had proven unpredictable. Updates from the surface team warned of more rain on the horizon, and the realization settled in that they could be stuck there for days. The team's confinement stretched into days, with damp air, lack of sleep, and relentless dripping water wearing them down, as rising water in the chamber forced them to repeatedly shift to higher ground. The food supply dwindled faster than expected, leading to hunger-induced physical effects like muscle aches and lightheadedness, while inactivity and the crushing weight of the mountain added to their misery. The surface team sought Mexican rescue teams, but lacking divers with the necessary training, they pinned their hopes on British divers who were en route, as the trapped team's fate hung in the balance. March 23, 2004. The trapped team was growing desperate, with panic setting in as they endured damp conditions, stagnant air, and dwindling hope, with even their normally composed leader, Jonathan Sims, struggling with anxiety. The physical state worsened due to meager rations, with Chris Mitchell's hands shaking and communication dwindling, as they clung to reassurances from the surface team that divers were on their way, but doubted their chances of rescue if the rain persisted. The cavers' situation remained dire on March 24th, with high water levels, dwindling rations, and physical and mental strain taking its toll after 8 days underground, leaving them exhausted, chilled, and anxious. British cave divers Rick Stanton and Jason Mallinson prepared for a perilous rescue mission, reviewing maps and checking equipment before navigating a treacherous, flooded passage to save trapped cavers. Stanton and Mallinson navigated treacherous underwater tunnels on March 25th, following a guideline through poor visibility and tight squeezes, with every movement being carefully calculated to avoid fatal mistakes. After what had felt like an eternity, they reached Camp 1. The 6 trapped cavers greeted them with a mixture of immense relief and urgency. They were exhausted, but there was no time to waste. The divers distributed additional air tanks and gave precise instructions. Each caver would be guided one at a time through the flooded tunnel, a task that would take hours to complete. Cavers submerged into icy water, relying on rescuers' expertise and their own composure to navigate through near-zero visibility, battling panic and primal instincts in a grueling underwater journey. After 9 grueling hours, the cavers finally escaped the cave, emerging into daylight, where they were met with intense media scrutiny and camera flashes. The cavers' relief at survival gave way to exhaustion and the stress of political fallout, and they were taken to a military hospital for evaluation, where the full weight of their ordeal finally hit them. The Mexican government detained the cavers, questioning their intentions and accusing them of secret geological exploration due to the presence of military personnel and radon testing equipment. The cavers, exhausted and confused, were now embroiled in an international scandal. The British government intervened diplomatically, negotiating for the safe release of their citizens. News outlets ran wild with speculation, further straining relations between the two countries. The caverns were charged with failing to disclose the scientific nature of their trip and lacking research permits, then expelled from Mexico, banned from returning, and escorted back to the UK under diplomatic supervision, despite lack of concrete evidence. The team returned home to mixed reactions, facing both praise for their survival and criticism for their expedition, with the experience leaving a lasting impact on them. Conclusion: the expedition ended in tragedy, highlighting the unforgiving nature of caves and the importance of being prepared and cautious. The team's harrowing experience served as a stark reminder of the risks involved in exploring such treacherous environments. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, hit that like button, share it with your family and friends, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below.